couldn't help but notice how scant the crowds, and I just could not believe I could walk right up to Big Tex and take a photo, do a photo shoot even.
But on social media, some families say even with discounted admission, once you add in food and the midway, it's still not in the budget.
What used to be an affordable family tradition has turned into a luxury weekend.
Is Big Tex facing any scandals that are leading to a mass boycott? If not, then why is it so empty under those giant cowboy boots? The Texas State Fair is considered a fair that has been likened to a giant storm of entertainment and food, where every dish, game, and live music performance shakes Dallas to its core. But by 2025, this place seemed to have been almost completely swept away by the storm of economic recession, leaving Big Tex standing alone in the middle of the desert. With gas prices soaring, the cost of living skyrocketing, and fears of spending cutbacks, many families are cutting back on all luxuries, including annual traditional trips. Organizers tried to boost attendance with promotions and discounted tickets, but still couldn't fill the once-packed parking lot. So, what's really going on in Dallas? Is the heart of Texas reflecting the situation across the United States, when even festive joy is gradually becoming a luxury item? In today's video, join us as we explore why the Texas State Fair is empty and whether the upcoming recession is wearing a cowboy hat. More than 2.5 million people flock to the Texas State Fair each year to rediscover simple pleasures and a sense of belonging, a place where people from all walks of life can enjoy the lively festival atmosphere at an affordable price. But this year, the footage circulating on TikTok tells a completely different story. A fair that is eerily empty. On social media, a series of TikTokers suddenly became famous when they shared images of the desolate scene at this year's fair. In a video that has garnered hundreds of thousands of views, user Yajira2829 captured the entire night fairgrounds from above. The lights were still bright, the Ferris wheel was still turning, but below were only empty walkways with the words, "I have never seen the Texas State Fair so empty." She's not the only one who feels that way. Another TikToker who visited the fair on October 8th from 1:45 p.m. until closing shared a similar sentiment. It was almost empty. From TikTok, the empty fair phenomenon quickly spread to Reddit and Facebook, where posts and videos documenting the deserted scene garnered tens of thousands of comments and shares. As social media exploded with speculation, numerous rumors began to circulate. That this year's fair was gradually shutting down, that attendance was severely declining, and that the 139-year-old festival was entering a period of decline. However, reality seems more complex than that. Fair officials and local media quickly spoke out to deny the reports, claiming everything was proceeding normally. They admit that the first few days of the fair are usually quite slow, with low visitor numbers, but insist that overall, things are still good. According to them, the videos circulating only reflect a biased perspective, filmed during off-peak hours or when there are few customers. However, there was one detail that made the public start to doubt. Many clips were filmed during the second week, even on weekend evenings, a time that is usually the peak of the festival season. And in those videos, the aisles were still completely empty, the rows of seats were still silent, and the vast parking lots were less than half full. This led the public to begin wondering, was the organizing committee trying to reassure the public, or had social media truly exaggerated the empty phenomenon beyond reality? While officials declared everything is normal, dozens of other videos painted a contrasting picture, a fair that looked more like a ghost town than a festival that once drew millions. Those two opposing feelings are reflecting two sides of the same truth. Although it's impossible to say what the truth is, one thing is almost certain. Rising costs and high prices are making the public increasingly sympathetic to what tourists are sharing online. And perhaps to understand why this once joyful symbol of fun now looks as empty as a graveyard, we need to delve deeper, tracing the path of bills, ticket prices, and even fading smiles. That will be revealed in the next part. Many people, upon seeing the empty Texas fairgrounds, quickly concluded that Americans were tightening their belts, trying to cut back on spending amid the economic downturn. But that's only half the story. The rest, deeper and more bitter, is everything at the fair that has now become absurdly inflated and expensive. Those who attended this year's fair all described a similar experience. Sticker shock. A $24 turkey leg, a $28 steak on a stick, and $40 for parking. A father recounts, "We had to use online discount codes and buy tickets early to save a little bit. But even after trying, after a few hours of fun, the total cost for a family of 4 still came to $411. A day at the fair, once a simple pleasure, now costs the equivalent of a week's worth of living for many working-class families. From entry tickets and parking to food, everything is priced so high that people are starting to sarcastically call it Coachella pricing." The price level of an exclusive music festival, not a traditional community fair. The stall owners also admit sales have plummeted, while the cost of raw materials, electricity, and rent has skyrocketed. Some people compare. The entrance fee to Disney is over $100, parking is $30, and the food is expensive, but they still stand in long lines. But the Texas Fair is completely empty. Why? The answer lies in emotion, not numbers. Disney is an iconic experience, the American dream that people are willing to pay to touch. And the Texas State Fair, which was a gift of memories and the working class's simple pleasure, now makes people feel like they're being fleeced. Let's imagine it this way. When a Mexican family spends a few $1,000s to go to Disneyland, they're not just buying park tickets. They're buying the feeling of living in a dream. Freedom, opportunity, creativity, and simple happiness. And the Texas State Fair was once the smallest and truest version of that dream. An afternoon with family, an affordable meal, a memory that didn't require a credit card. But now, that dream is being revalued and perhaps has become unattainable for those who cherish its memory. Comparing Disney to the Texas State Fair is like comparing Broadway to community theater. On one side is the pinnacle of global entertainment. On the other, it was once the pride of the working class. Not to mention, young Americans today are changing their habits. They don't want to pay for temporary experiences, but rather spend on something more worthwhile. What brings true emotions and lasting spiritual value. The fair, once the joy of the working class, has now become a mirror reflecting the gap between rich and poor. The rich came to show off, while the poor could only stand outside and watch. Despite the organizers' efforts to launch promotional programs, the image of the $24 turkey leg has become a symbol of an expensive society where even the simplest joys have become a luxury. Because, after all, it's not just a chicken leg, it's a measure of economic injustice. Once a symbol of popular joy, it has now become a luxury item accessible only to a small group. And in that quiet space, the loudest sound was no longer music or games, but the slamming of wallets. From all over America, if a turkey leg can become a symbol of economic injustice, how many other everyday joys are silently disappearing from American life without us even realizing it? When even a festival once meant for everyone becomes a luxury, can America still hold on to the meaning of the common dream? Or is every smile now bought with money? The music is still playing. The rotation is still lit up. But the most notable thing about this year's Texas Fair is not any new games or special dishes, but stories about people who can no longer afford it. Pay for fun. In the past, going to the fair was a natural decision, without hesitation. But now, in the midst of a long period of inflation, joy also becomes a calculation. A woman in Fort Worth shared that her family comes to the fair every year, but this year it's okay. We want to go, but we can't justify that expense. Another said, back in the day the fair was obvious. Now I have to choose between going to the fair and filling up to work. Their story is not unique, but the epitome of an economy that is losing steam. Nearly 37% of Americans said they can no longer afford regular recreational activities, the highest level since the pandemic, according to a Federal Reserve survey released in early 2025. That number is not just about money, but also about the spirit of a country that was once famous for its happy living, is now learning to live without joy. Amidst the bright light of big techs, the atmosphere was a bit tiring. People go slower, consider more, before buying. Many stalls had to offer discounts in the evening to save sales. The stall owners whispered that they had never seen such low spending. People came to look, not to buy. A local journalist described the scene with a haunting phrase: the recession wearing a cowboy hat, a recession wearing a festive look. From afar, the fair is as brilliant as ever. But as one approaches, one realizes that light is reflecting on a more uncertain reality. People who still try to be happy, even though in their hearts everything is different. And perhaps the most heartbreaking thing lies not in the price, but in the feeling that joy is now classy too. The rich can still pay to enjoy themselves, and the laborers just stand outside the fence, listening to the music coming from inside the sound that used to be theirs, now only remains as a luxury memory. Against this backdrop, a number of local brands have tried to bring solutions. Supermarket chains, H-E-B and AT&T, partnered with organizers to offer 20% off vouchers to low-income families, encouraging them to return to the fair. But are a few coupons enough to heal a mental crack that is getting deeper and deeper between classes? If joy must be weighed with money, is it still real joy? Or are we living in a time where even entertainment has to be class selective, where laughter is only for those who can afford it? And when the public started complaining, the way the media and organizers reacted, as we will see in the sequel, only made this picture more complicated. After videos of the empty Texas fair began to spread across social media, public opinion quickly split into two camps. Those who believed it was a sign of a weakening economy, and others think, maybe it's all just a sophisticated marketing tactic. This question does not appear by chance. Some observant viewers found that the most viral videos about the fair were reposted or shared by accounts with promotional links for the event, which regularly partnered with local media campaigns. Some posts carrying the fair's official hashtag, although the content seems negative, lead viewers directly to the ticket sales page. It's a two-sided marketing move, a commenter on Reddit said. The more argues, the more their name is mentioned. The organizers immediately denied all allegations of information manipulation. They claim that has no control or creation of those videos, but also admit to taking advantage of the spread so that reminds people that the fair is still open. A gentle way of speaking, but hidden behind that is the truth. Modern media no longer revolves around controlling information, but learning to ride the wave of public opinion, whether positive or negative. The irony is that in the midst of that controversy, both sides won. Social networking channels earn millions of views, while fair organizers are promoted for free nationwide. The only price to pay is public trust. People feel emotionally exploited, turned into a part of the marketing game without their knowledge. A featured comment on Facebook read, "Even our anger is now turned into content." And that quote seems to sum up the current media era, where every reaction, whether outrageous or skeptical, can become commercial property. It's hard to define the line between media and manipulation when it's people's outrage that becomes the engine for rage bait campaigns. Tactics that exploit negative emotions to pull views. Every angry comment, every angry share contributes to a game where viewers think they are protesting, but are actually promoting what they are protesting. Against this backdrop, some major brands have tried to restore trust by changing their approach. Spectrum Local News Texas announced that it will stop using clips posted by users if the origin is not verified, and increase investment in a team of reporters at the scene to ensure the truthfulness of the news. A small but meaningful step in an age where everything can be cut to serve a pre-existing story. And as a mirror of modern society, the story of Texas State Fair is not just about a festival, but about faith, which is more fragile than ever in the click and share era. If public trust can also be sold, then what is real about those festival images? Are we living in a time where even outrage becomes goods packaged, shared and monetized by human emotions themselves? If you want to find out why a turkey thigh costs up to 24 lon, you have to look deeper into the back of the stand where sellers are struggling to endure an absurdly harsh cost system. Contrary to the shimmering image of the Texas Fair on the posters, behind the scenes is a fight for survival. Many small traders revealed that to get a small booth on the fairgrounds, they have to pay rental fees of up to about $5,000, not to mention other mandatory costs such as electricity, water, transportation, and insurance. But what exhausted them the most was not the amount of rent, but the policy of dividing revenue. According to many sellers, they had to pay back up to 50% of the profits to the organizers. A longtime seller, who requested anonymity for fear of losing his right to rent space, said, "We don't want to sell expensive, but if you don't do that, you won't be able to pay for the space, not to mention the materials and labor." Another side. The more we sell, the more we lose. It feels like it's being slowly muffled. Turns out, expensive ticket, or cutthroat food, is just the tip of a chain of pressure from the top down. The organizers push up costs. The seller has to raise prices to survive. And in the end, it is the customer who bears the consequences. In that spiral, no one really wins. The sellers run out of energy, the consumers walk away, and the organizers try to maintain the profits by squeezing out the very people who make up the soul of the fair. This story is not unique to Texas. It is a miniature picture of the current American economy, where greed is no longer personal, but is codified, legally, publicly, and dressed up in the appearance of professionally managed. Policies that seem financially reasonable accidentally put hundreds of small businesses in a situation where there was no way out. And when the firekeepers of the fair cannot live by their craft, what remains but artificial lights and hollow music? In response to the wave of criticism, the organizers announced that is considering adjusting the fee for next season. Several large corporations such as H-E-B and PepsiCo, the fair's longtime sponsoring partners, have committed to establishing funds to support small vendors, helping them cover raw material and transportation costs. But for many sellers, trust has been eroded. They not only need relief, but need a fairer system where retail workers are not treated as pieces in the profit game. Because when greed becomes policy, the price to pay is not just money, but the soul of an entire festival. If those who keep the fire for the fair don't have enough to live on, will the joy still exist? And is this just human greed, or is it a mechanism that is stifling the working class, right in the very places that were once erected to honor them? Amid bright neon lights, echoing country music, and the fragrant smell of grilled food, the Texas Fair should have been a place where people temporarily forgot about the harsh realities outside. But this year, that scene became proof of a much sadder truth. America is gradually losing the ability to pay the price for its own joy. It's not just about a fair. From parks to movie theaters to concerts, more and more Americans feel that they can no longer afford to enjoy themselves. A Dallas mother shared, "When I was little, my parents could take the whole family out on weekends without worrying about bills. Now I have to consider every penny." Those stories resonate everywhere, especially in the 50-60 generation of people who once lived in a time when America was abundant and now feel lost in an era where all pleasures cost too much. According to Bureau of Labor Statistics, BLS statistics in 2025, the average spending of an American household on entertainment decreased by 12% compared to 2019, while the cost of living increased by nearly 28%. This reflects a reality. Joy is gradually becoming a luxury, no longer a natural human need. People still want to be happy, but they can't justify it in the face of pressure on bills, home debt, insurance, and gas. The general feeling is disappointment and helplessness. When things that used to be normal, a walk, a turkey thigh, a Ferris wheel, now have to be hesitated before buying, Americans begin to realize what few people dare to say. We're too broke to have fun. A phrase is circulating on social networks, reflecting the true mood of millions of people. They are not only short of money, they are lacking the feeling of living comfortably. The Texas State Fair Organizing Committee still tries to emphasize the positive side. They said the ticket money helped raise over $19.5 million for community programs and local scholarships, a not inconsiderable number. But with the public, it creates an even more mixed feeling. They are not against volunteering, but they do not want to have to trade their joy for others to be helped. I came here to laugh, not to be taught kindness, one attendee shared. In that context, some big brands began to realize opportunities to restore trust. Southwest Airlines, with its Low Fares, Big Smiles campaign, is partnering with community events to reduce airfare and give away travel packages to working families. A small step, but reminiscent of the spirit of old America, where fun was not a privilege. And perhaps the scariest thing is not the increase in ticket prices, but the feeling that pleasure has now become an economic problem. If even simple joy becomes a luxury, what is left for America to believe in? Are we living in a time where optimism also needs to be bought with entrance tickets? And if so, who will have enough money left to smile? As the lights of the Texas Fair gradually fade, what remains is not laughter, but the heavy silence of an America that is learning to adapt to a new reality. Joy also comes at a price. Games, meals, and music that were once associated with happy memories now become a measure of the distance between those who are still able to enjoy and those who can only stand and watch. Not only is the Texas Fair empty in terms of attendance, it's empty because of the loss of soul it once had. The belief that simple happiness is something everyone deserves. And perhaps this is the silent tragedy of America today, when a country that once taught the world about dreams now struggles to find the meaning of the word fun. If even the smiles of the festival had to be converted with money, would America still be able to nurture trust for the next generation? Or are we living in an age where optimism must also be bought with entrance tickets? If you feel these things touch your mind, please share the video so that more people can look back at America through a more realistic lens. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Is joy still something everyone is allowed to have? Or is it just a luxury item of the new era? The content in this video is built on public information, press sources, and opinions from the people, with the purpose of serving. The content in this video is built on public information, press sources, and opinions from people, with the purpose of analyzing the economic social phenomenon in an objective perspective, not to attribute or accuse any person, organization, or agency. All statements, comparisons, and images used are merely interpretative, illustrative, and suggestive of reflection, and do not represent the official statement or views of any party concerned. Viewers are encouraged to self-verify information and form their own perspectives based on their experiences and independent thinking.